She joins us today here in the studio to discuss more of the powers of alchemy and the Get Unstuck Revolution. Remy, welcome to Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast.
Thank you, Rick. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you again. We met at a women's breakfast put on by SCORE.
That's right.
And our good friend Lorraine Wardy hosts it, and you were there, and I was so impressed with your 4 books and what you're doing. I said, you got to come on the show, and we finally were able to get you here today.
I was impressed with you as a speaker. You really held my attention.
Oh, that's true.
That's
I spoke
right.
that time. Thank you very much. All right, enough of the... Let's move on. So I've got to ask you, what is the Get Unstuck Revolution? Let's start right there.
Well, that was born because so many people came to me and said, I'm feeling stuck. And I would ask them, what's got you stuck? And they wouldn't know. I've tried everything, they would say, and I can't seem to solve this particular problem. And so what I found after talking to so many people and researching, there was often a spiritual injury underneath the surface that they hadn't dealt with, some kind of a invalidation where somebody squashes you, makes you feel like you don't exist, like you don't matter. And this invalidation could be anything from something very traumatic like a home invasion. I mean, there's a big statement that you don't matter, right?
Right.
Or something very subtle like your best friend saying, oh, just get over it. And sometimes it's just under the surface, needling you to deal with it, and you're trying to find success.
Okay.
But it can be elusive.
Can it be something that happened in the past, like
Of
not
course.
a recent past, but a
Of
long?
course.
Okay, so they could be carrying it for a while.
Exactly.
Okay. And so what is the Get Unstuck Revolution? What is it exactly that you're doing to help people?
Helping people overcome spiritual injury by
Okay.
teaching them how to transform that challenge into a blessing or into a success, by finding their inherent positive nature, their natural optimism. Yeah, because what we do when we're stuck is we get hung up in the energy. I often say it's never the situation with a capital N, never the situation. It's the energy behind it, the panic, the frustration.
So when you say energy, can you put some more words around that so our
Yeah.
audience can...
Yes. Doubts, worries, confusion, indecision, anger is a big one. And so when you've had something that's happened to you that you haven't settled in your mind, you're walking around carrying these negative energies and you may not realize it. And so you begin to just look at everything that's going wrong. And per universal law,
You're attracting it.
that's right.
I didn't mean to finish your sentence,
No,
but I'm
you're
kind of on your vibe with you
100%
now.
right.
So I'm getting you.
Yes.
Okay. And that's not good,
Well,
right?
right.
So you're actually doing exactly the opposite of what you should be doing. But you help people to realize that.
Right.
How open are people to having this conversation with you?
I wish I could say very open, but
Okay.
most people get hung up in their story. They want to tell me how bad it is, how wrong it is, the person that hurt them or their situation.
So they're projecting out of themselves.
Yes. And they just get hung up in the little sewage plant right there.
Okay.
And it's really hard to get out of it once you get stuck in it.
Right?
Yeah.
Why? But wouldn't you think it sounds so
Habits.
logical that you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And once you have this understanding,
Yes.
you could begin to change.
Yes, part of it is habit. Part of
Okay,
it is
right.
this inherent need to prove yourself right.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right, because you
Yeah.
have to admit that you're the... Okay.
Yeah.
This
That you've
is-
been screwing up for so long.
This has been a great few minutes so far with Remy. I'm having a blast. I hope you are too, people. Man, we're learning so much here talking to you.
Yeah.
So how do you do this for people? Do you do it in a consultation? What is the way that people find you and you help them?
A number of different tools which are offered every day on my podcast at unlockyourhiddenpower.com. They are all so simple, and yet they're also similar. I also do it through workshops, local and virtual.
Uh-huh.
I do it through my many books, simple conversation like you and I are having, so that listeners can kind of be voyeurs to the conversation and say, oh, I could see where that would work.
Right.
Yeah.
And I imagine you're working with people from all walks of life and demographics, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're in Orange County. This is a melting pot.
Can I tell you about the young man that called me at 4 o'clock in the morning from Asia? He sent me an email, and he wanted to jump on a Skype call. And I'm thinking, oh, no, that's probably a booty call. Right? But something in me said I needed to talk to him. And he was about to graduate college with a degree, and I don't remember what, but he was very upset because his family, his culture, was pushing him into a direction he didn't want to go. And he said, it's not my passion, and I don't want to graduate, but I don't know how to not fail my family, right? We get certain cultures that
Right.
are, yes.
There's a lot of pressure there.
So we talked through a plan that he could implement to both follow his passions and make his family happy. And part of that plan was to go into graduate school, continue his education, and everything he would learn through all of his schooling and education would help him when he got to that point where he was ready for his passion. I ran into him about a year and a half later, And he said that if it had not been for our phone call, he had planned to take his life before morning.
Oh, my goodness.
That's how much it was weighing on him.
Well,
Yeah. So invalidation can take many forms: family,
Right.
culture, home invasion, trauma. I mean, it's all around us.
So before we leave this part of the radio show, and this isn't on the script, but you're just inspiring me to ask this question. And it's okay if you don't have an answer for it or it's not appropriate. Just tell me so. But would there be any tricks or tips or aids that you could offer to someone who's listening to this interview who maybe feels this way but isn't ready to reach out to you? Is there some self-healing that people might be able to do that you could give them some advice based on your experience?
Yes. If you could imagine a big blackboard or whiteboard in front of you and the words move, period, the, period, energy, period. Right?
Okay.
What a metaphor I often give people is that we find ourselves in karmic relationships on this planet, right? People you've known before, whether it's the last job or the last life, doesn't matter. Things tend to come around over and over and over again. And at the bottom of each one of these karmic relationships, we're being asked to step out of the energy cycle that we're in, the energy cycle of frustration, doubts, worries, confusion, anger, all of that, and to step into a different energy cycle, a different perspective.
Okay.
Right. And that's step one. And so many people have trouble with just that.
Okay. So on one level, I guess I'm not done with this section because you drove me back in, which is fine. It's my radio show. We'll go where I find my interest, right? You don't mind. Hey, it's good stuff
I'll
here.
go wherever you're driving.
Transferring knowledge.
Yeah.
At one level, that sounds so simple.
Right.
But on the other level, that sounds like you're really trying to reprogram, maybe the wrong word, but I mean,
Yes.
but reprogram the way you approach the world and your interaction with it.
Yeah.
So it must be, on that hand, it's challenging.
It's
'Cause it's a
fascinating.
habit.
It's fascinating because I work with corporate people and spiritual people. I attract mostly spiritual for, I don't know why. So this woman realized one day in her marriage that her husband had executed her more than 100 times in past lives. One day she just looked at him and said, she just had this memory all of a sudden. And she said to me, Remy, can you imagine living in this energy of the person who's executed you so many times? How do I get out of this? Right?
Yeah.
And so it's simply a matter of look for the positive, look for the blessing. What is one thing about him that you can appreciate? And she couldn't think of anything. Her marriage was falling apart. She hated him. Couldn't think of anything. But at the end of the day, she said, well, he's been a provider. And so she just hung with that. And then by the time they got through their divorce, and at the end of the day, she came out with a $250,000 settlement that she didn't even know he had that money. And she was willing to walk out of it just with the shirt on her back, literally. But because she was appreciating him being a provider, through the laws of the universe, ended up with this magnificent settlement that she wasn't even expecting.
So you've studied and you believe there are some universal laws of the universe that
Many, yes.
I'm sorry?
Many.
Many. Okay. Well, we don't have time for many.
No.
But can we give some context for if there's a priority order to them? Or, again, I guess I'm asking you to sort of self-help my audience a bit with what you know?
Yeah. So the best thing I can say is that when you're on a challenge, there's often a value, a core value that's bubbling to come up to the surface, one that you've never identified perhaps, or one that was invalidated by the people who are around you. And so instead of looking at the challenge as a problem, which only makes that challenge get bigger and bigger, look for what's underneath it. What value do you have that you invalidated, that you ignored, or that they invalidated that you went along with, or maybe a value you never considered before? For instance, I like to leave a place better than I found it. Simple, right? Yeah. But if I'm in a partnership at business or at church or anywhere and somebody's leaving a mess behind, it bothers me. And if I let that go without settling it, it's going to bother me the next day and the next week and the next year. Yeah, because it's a value.
And you'll be carrying that with you. So how did you get into this area?
You know, I have been in real estate for many, many years on all sides of the transaction, buying, selling, investing, and as a licensed realtor, every side of it. And for years, I did my first transaction in 1975. So not to date myself, but I'm very old, right? And very successful, made a lot of zeros. I won't tell you how many, but one day everything started falling apart. I lost every property I owned. My income went from many, many, many zeros down to $2,400 that year.
Wow.
So I knew something was very wrong. And all of a sudden, people were asking me, are you writing a book? And I looked around like, what? I've never written a book before. Why would you? But everybody was seeing this book on me. And that became actually my first book. It was like a high-speed sled. Just took me on a ride that I couldn't get off of. And that's why I like to stay open to destiny, Sometimes there's a plan that you're not even aware of if you'll just let that bubble up.
And what was that first book about?
That was called Living Life as an Exclamation Point, on
Okay.
how to find your inner positivity, your inner resilience, right? Your inner exclamation points. Because, have you ever had that experience where they're all laying dead on the floor? All your exclamation points have just died, right? We've all had those moments. Yeah.
So did you, what was the inspiration for the book? Did you,
None.
it just came
It
through
just
you?
came.
You just were the vessel for it to
Exactly.
come into
Yeah.
existence.
I was going to write a book about real estate.
Well, that's what you
Yeah.
knew, right? Yeah. Why not?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you brought with us, this is your fourth book?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll hold it up for those with the camera, but I have to read the title first. Unlock Your Hidden Power, the 22 Undeniable Laws of Alchemy. And here's the book. Hopefully you can see it. We'll put it in the show notes for you as well. What's the big idea within this book, Remy?
The magic of alchemy is an ability to transform any challenge into a blessing or any challenge into a success. If you know how to find the positive, find the blessing, find what's working, and stop looking at what's not working.
So I'm going to ask you a question. You tell me if it's at all close to the mark. By focusing on the positive, are you attracting more positive then in the challenge? Is that what's happening?
That's part of it, but kind of in a weird way, you end up finding the questions that you aren't asking. You're looking for answers to solve the problem, but by looking at the positive and for the positive, you come up with resolution often.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it really is controlling how you view a situation.
It's shifting the energy.
It's shifting the energy. So when you're saying shifting the energy, I hear of something that's external to me.
Could be.
Can energy be internal as well?
Yes. My ex-husband, I used to call him Mr. Grumpy Butt. And I
To his
used
face?
Yeah, to his
Okay, good.
face. I'd say, can you walk into the room with anything positive at all? Because he was such a Mr. Grumpy Butt, right? But people like that attract things to gripe about, right? So when you start looking for the positive, even if it's hard to find, one thing to appreciate, he's a good provider, right?
Okay.
Any one thing begins to shift the energy externally as well as internally.
Okay, so you say, Remy, that this is you contain the 22 undeniable laws.
Undeniable.
In what way?
They're undeniable.
Because you say so, huh?
Open the book to anyone and see what you think. Each chapter is very short, just a page or two, followed by a quote, followed by an exercise that you can implement it
Like
into
that?
your own life. Yeah.
Can I read it?
Yes.
This is undeniable law number 12, and it says, "Don't be distracted by the energy of others." How does that manifest? Tell us what that means in lay speak.
Yeah. So in the example we've talked about, you have a husband, a spouse, a business partner, a best friend, a child, someone at your church, anywhere in life, and their energy is poor. Don't be distracted by it. Step away, walk away. One of my favorite exercises is the stop sign hand. When you put up the stop sign hand and block their vision,
Okay.
it blocks their train of thought.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't be distracted. Don't get involved. Yeah.
So don't let them bring you into their world.
Right.
Can you bring them into your world?
If they're willing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't change people's energy if they're not willing.
Yeah. And then you have to be, in my mind, you have to be very careful about who you allow into your universe.
Because?
The bad energy can really infect everyone around you and every situation around you.
Okay, I just happened to open the page. Now I'm on number 11. When one door closes, don't get stuck in the hallway. Okay.
Always leave one window open.
What do you mean?
That's your escape.
Okay.
That's your positive outlook.
Okay.
You ever get the idea that everything's falling apart? Nothing's working right. This is what I hear every single day. People say, I've tried everything. Really? Have you tried shifting the energy? That's your one door that you can keep open, a different perspective.
Okay, you say, and I want to understand, so that's why I'm asking you. You say, Remy, keep shifting your energy. We're talking about your thoughts and your focus. How do those three do they interrelate? Are they the same thing? When you say shifting your energy, specifically, what are you suggesting people do?
Perspective is probably the best thing.
Okay.
Yeah. When you can find something good in the situation, however small it might be.
Okay.
What's the blessing in it?
Okay.
Right? What can you use as an opportunity? Course in Miracles, a lot of people have heard of this. That's how it defines a miracle, is simply a shift in perspective. We have a lot of people who feel a certain way about Trump. But if you shift your perspective at how he might be changing the lands, right, for the good or for the worse, there is a change happening, right? Shift your perspective from he's a bully, he uses the wrong language on Twitter, or however you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can shift the energy and say, well, now we have some perspective about what kind of leader we want to see next. Yeah.
Do you find that by shifting the energy, people change their body chemistry / physiology in a more fundamental way as well?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's got to be healthy, right? I would
Always.
think if you're focused in the negative, then you've got something bad going on inside your organs that you don't really intend to have happen, right?
You've seen it.
I'm sorry?
You've seen it, haven't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Yes, we all have.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really is more than just your outlook. It's your physical health as well, right? As well as your mental health.
Yes, if you've ever followed Tony Robbins, I can't remember his exact saying, but it has to do with thoughts create beliefs, or thoughts create actions, or thoughts create something comes next always. So
Right.
when you start with a positive thought or start with changing your perspective about something, it creates a domino effect.
So this is your 4th book. If someone would like to learn more about buying this book and finding it, where would they go, Remy, to find it?
I can do you one better.
Okay.
Your listeners, just because you're so special, right, can get the whole book for free. Right?
Free?
Yes.
amazing price.
Yes. Unlockyourhiddenpower.com.
Wow.
It is an amazing price, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
You can't beat free.
You can't beat free.
So is there a PDF download? Is that what
Yes.
happens?
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, that's instantaneous then.
It's
You can get the book
instantaneous.
before the show ends if you're...
Yes.
And what's the website again?
Unlockyourhiddenpower.com. And you'll have a chance after you grab your free copy, if you would like a hard copy, that's also free if you pay shipping.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's next for you? Where's your practice? Where are you going in this world?
I've learned after my experience coming out of real estate into something brand new to stay open to destiny, to stay
Yes.
flexible.
Right.
Because you just never know. There was a time when I would set goals at the front of every year, and in December I'd sit down and reflect on what I'd actually accomplished, and the two lists rarely matched.
But you had many years of being a successful real estate
Yes.
agent. That seems like a different person than this lady that's sitting in front of me today.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, your focus had to be different back
I
then.
actually had someone show up at one of my workshops and say, "Who are you?"
Because they knew you from before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it has been a journey for you to be this woman that you're here in the studio today.
No question.
And so for our audience who may be inspired by the idea of shifting their energy, this isn't an overnight, is it?
It can be.
It can be,
It
but
can be.
don't we fall back into our habits? I mean, isn't life
Sometimes.
sometimes pulling us back
Yeah.
sometimes?
Yeah.
I mean, the comfortable is the familiar and may not be the best for us, but it's where we spent our time.
Yes.
And we know that area.
Yeah. This is why I do a weekly podcast, because every week they're short, 20 minutes, just like you do. And each week has a little tool or a little tip on how to make just a subtle shift.
Right.
Yes.
One small step. And what is that podcast? I mean, you said it before, but how
It's
do
at
they
the
find
same-
it?
It's at the same.
So if they go, okay, it's all there.
It's all there.
Make it simple for you, ladies and gentlemen. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
a bit and being here, a friend of the program, bringing new ideas and thoughts. I really
Yes.
appreciate it, Remy.
Yes. You changed my world as well, because I started looking at these unintended consequences and thought, wow, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for that.
Yes.
That makes me feel really good. Appreciate it. All right, my friends, I'm going to thank our engineer, Paul Roberts, as well as our 3 producers without whom I could not do this show each week, and they are Joan Park, Crystal Nunley, and our newest producer who's here in the studio, Nicole Terry. If you'd like to learn more and connect with me, let's start on LinkedIn. I'm Richard Franzi, spelled Franzi. And until our next show, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company and you in a positive direction.